The second habit, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, is begin with the end in mind. Let me throw the ball straight to you, and let's begin.
Yeah, so it's, I think, very important. I think some people are far better at this than other people. I certainly don't consider this to be one of my strengths. I tend to focus a lot more on what is it I need to do well today. But totally get that you need to have a destination that you're going to, and so I think if you talk to most people who have excelled, like a Steve Jobs or those sort of individuals, that they definitely had this incredible picture in mind that they were creating. So again, I must admit my 7 Habits it's so informed me, but it's not a book that I go back to every year like you, Dave. But I do remember Stephen Covey talking about how things are created twice. First, almost inwardly, and then externally.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing. So even if you had to think of at the end of lockdown, what is it you would have wanted to have to leave lockdown with? So Mandy and I actually did a podcast. We haven't released it yet, but we did on Sunday, which was actually in very similar veins, because it went along these lines. What at the end of lockdown would you have liked to have created, yes, comprehended, and contributed? So 3 C's: created, comprehended, contributed. Because we do always run the risk of leaving something where we haven't lived our potential, and we've actually been idle. I think the end in mind is powerful because it creates energy for the action for now.
Yeah.
And that's where I'd sort of put it.
Yeah. I again, I love what you're saying. I'm going to drop back to some of that as well. I think some people take this starting with the end in mind, and they don't realize what end we're talking about. Is it the end of next week? Is it the end of a season? I think actually Stephen Covey talks in the book The 8th Habit. He talks about the whole thing of legacy, leaving a legacy. And I think it's tremendously important. The end initially that we all start with is the end of our life. What do we want people to say of us when we're gone? I was talking to a church a while ago, and I said to them, the real acid test of whether a church has been successful is when that church stops existing in the area, who would notice? And when we stop existing on this planet, who's going to be the ones that will notice? What legacy are we building? What are we carving on that stone for ourselves?
Yeah. And then I suppose there's another question linked to that one. Who do you want to notice? So there could be the thing of, those people will notice, but were those people that you wanted to notice?
Right.
And I think that's the end in mind. So Dave, I've just been reminded about something that was hugely transformational in my life. So when I was leaving the corporate world, it was a huge decision, big decision. You've got the corporate handcuffs, the golden handcuffs. I worked for a great organization. I was happy in that organization. But one of the exercises I did with a mentor was I wrote about a day in my life. Now we're talking 2004, and I can still remember this so clearly. I wrote about a day in my life in July 2009. And it was a very, very interesting exercise, and a very difficult exercise in a way, because you've got to get your mind out the way. And once you start writing, you've just got to keep writing without casting judgment on it. But it basically starts like this. I wake up, it's the 1st of July, 2009, remembering I'm in 2004. And what is it that you do? And it was a very interesting exercise because some of your values come out, your most important values, but also you begin to see what things are important to you. Because I can remember saying things like this, I'm doing some work and I'm talking to this guy in his language, I'm doing this. And then I have the freedom to be able to go and watch my daughter play a game of hockey. And then I'm back and I'm doing these sorts of things. The beautiful part about it was that when I got to that date, it was far from complete, but probably about 75% of it had been achieved, and it was a huge motivation to create a day into the future.
I love that that whole exercise. Of course, anybody that wrote about 2020 got it completely wrong, right? So, I think that when we ask questions about the end in mind, we have to start, as you said. I said I'd come back to it. We write the internal story first, because the internal story always informs the external outworking of that story. And I love the fact that I remember, when I was a kid, when I was 12, while my friends were dreaming of becoming engineers or rocket scientists, I was dreaming of being a pastor. Can you believe it? And that was deep inside me from an early age. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be remembered as somebody that helped change people's thinking for the better. And obviously, as time goes on, your thinking about things changes and you get bigger. But those internal desires have definitely informed the journey that my life has taken. And so starting with the end in mind has to be starting with an internal journey of the end in mind first. And I love what your thoughts there. Writing down, what would I be doing in 5-6 years time, but doing it from an internal journey, my values, my thoughts, what are driving me, what's making me passionate, in those 6 years, more than which house or geography. I think when we talk about the end in mind, we tend to go straight to geography, don't we? Where or what. And I think that actually the question is more important is why. What's the passion?
Yeah, the contribution. What is the contribution that you would have made to society? What is it that you're doing? Is it meaningful work? I think most of us want meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And in that end in mind, hopefully those are some of the things that are coming out. I think that's where an exercise like beginning with the end in mind can be hugely clarifying, because it's not just about possessions and status, even though they can make their way into things like that. But it's like you said, it's about the compelling why you're doing these things, who you're with.
Well, that's another great question, hey, Mike. It's not just about where, it's with whom. I think that's incredibly important, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's good thinking. There's a guy called Michael Hyatt, and he, I think this is his quote. I got it with him, whether he's got it from somebody else. But he talks about when the destination is clear, the path will appear. And I think that's quite a nice quote, because the now activity. And you could argue that maybe if you find yourself having very, very little energy for life or for what you're doing, perhaps the end, the pictures of possibility have not been created.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. Creating a picture of possibility. And, so I want to throw a question at you, Mike. Because I get sometimes in my coaching get accused of, it's okay for you. You're very structured. You thinking structurally, etc. And you have a plan and a strategy. And I teach a lot around that. But then I get accused of, I guess, the other type of people who don't want the structure. They want to kind of almost just go with the flow. They want to kind of just be. I'm trying to say it without it sounding negative, because, but do you understand? How would you speak to that? How would starting with the end in mind work with someone who wants to be more bohemian about life, and more ebb and flow? How would that work?
Yeah, it would be interesting how many people want their life in 5 years' time to be exactly like it is now. And I would suggest that answer would be very, 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 very small, because even a hippie bohemian person is probably dreaming of a day 5 years from now that is different from today.
So they still have an end in mind, right?
Yeah, look, so certainly, if you're a bohemian hippie, I'm hoping that you're not living in COVID-19 in 5 years' time. And
Sure.
surely you have a dream of peace, a dream of less anxieties within the world. But I think what could be interesting is maybe the way that that people put it onto paper could be different. So Mandy runs a workshop which is a vision board workshop, and there you're using pictures for the end in mind.
Mm.
And you actually almost old-fashioned cutting out pictures and putting it on the board, and then you've got it in your cupboard so that you can see it. Maybe the vehicle, the medium would be different, considering who you are, the type of person you are. But I'd be very surprised if there are too many people who say, I really, really hope my life 5 years from now is exactly like it is today, because you're then defying a principle which I think is in the universe, which is this principle of motion, movement. The universe is expanding right now. Everything is moving. The goal of life is to grow wiser. The goal of life is to find more contribution. The goal of life is to make a difference. So I think I'll just challenge somebody in that way. Do you want today in 5 years' time? It would be interesting if there are people out there who would say exactly like it is today.
I think you answered it really, really well. I think it doesn't matter how structured or unstructured you are. Everyone still has a picture of the future. They just may have different ways. Another thing I wanted to throw in here, which is interesting, is the fact that we all have drivers. The 5 drivers, and which perhaps maybe we should definitely do a season on these as well. 5 drivers is security, variety, significance, love and connection, and personal growth. So these are the 5 key drivers that motivate. How does starting with the end in mind work with security and variety? These two almost, you would say, these are push-pull drivers inside of us. And we're doing it with the end in mind. We want variety, but we also want the security of knowing where we're going.
Yeah, look, so Davey, the line was a bit bad there for a moment, but I think I got what you said. Look, I think with the end in mind, with all these things, is we're dealing with 8 billion unique individuals out there, and different aspects, their values, their frames of reference, all those sorts of things will contribute to the end in mind that they create. I suppose what can be useful, and this is where a coach can become very, very useful, is our end in mind can sometimes, not sometimes, will be governed by what we've experienced. So Trevor Noah, and I'm probably going to mess this up. I wish I had the quote in front of me, but he basically tells a story. He says his mom, so Trevor Noah grew up in Soweto, and he says his mom would take him to the white suburbs, the then white suburbs in South Africa, and they would peep over the wall. And Trevor Noah says something quite profound. He says, it's very, very difficult for you to dream of something you don't know. If all you know is a shack, your dream is a gate for your driveway.
A slightly better shack.
Slightly better shack, yeah. And he says his mom was so powerful because she had such a powerful influence, because she exposed him to things bigger. So you can only dream about that which you've been exposed to. And there's an interesting thought, So if we're talking about the end in mind, that's where we sometimes would probably need help in the form of a coach or somebody who helps us get through some of our own limiting beliefs around what is possible maybe 5-10 years from now.
It's the art of,
and I know that isn't it a lot, yeah.
Absolutely, and we have limiting self-beliefs. Another subject we should talk about, and those limiting self-beliefs will definitely make the end in mind less than it could be. And I love the idea. We need a life coach often because we have blinkers, areas that we can't see. And one thing, we were talking about friendship a while ago, and one of the things I love about being around you, Mike, is that when I come away from having one of our coffee sessions together, I feel like my world has been expanded. you know. And I think that we all need people in our lives that expand us, you know, that are willing to say, you can dream bigger. There is more inside than you think there is. Challenging those limiting self-beliefs, you know. And I think all of us need to seek and search out people in our lives that do that for us.
Yeah. How do you take it further, and how do you extend the boundaries so that you actually get a picture? Dave, you used to use a quote. Was it from Michelangelo or something like that? I'm going back to a workshop we ran many years ago, but something about reaching for the stars. If you reach for,
Aim for the stars, hit the fence post.
Something like that. But I remember. I think it was a Michelangelo quote that you used to use. That was quite profound. Remember when we were doing that workshop about target setting?
Yeah.
And part of your area was trying to create that that dream.
Yeah.
And So I think without a doubt, we need people, border buddies. A guy called Bruce Wilkinson talks about that. Border buddies who help us see beyond the border. But if all I know is the border, I'm probably not going to be able to vision something bigger than that. And I suppose that's where reading, curiosity, we spoke about curiosity a couple of weeks ago, is so important.
And reading widely, read stuff you don't agree with. Read politicians who you are diverse to you. Challenge your thinking. If you're a Christian or you're a person of faith, challenge yourself by listening to other people's faith. Be challenged, be curious, be adventurous, be courageous. I think we're well over our time today, Mike. But this has been a really great. I'm sure Stephen Covey wouldn't even recognize it, but anyway. So on to our.
Probably say, those oaks just don't get it.
They probably need to read the book sometime, he's probably saying. But we'll tackle number 3 tomorrow. It's been great chatting to Mikey. Until tomorrow, au revoir.